everyone, and welcome to episode 510 of the MTGGoldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew here this week, kicking things off with the owner of MTGGoldfish, Richard. How are you this fine Monday, Richard?
Good morning, Seth. Doing well. How are you doing?
Doing good. Got a bit of a cold, but other than that, doing pretty well. Excited for our cast today because we have some pretty interesting topics that have come up over the past week. But before we get into all that, we got another co-host in Krim. Good morning, Krim. How you doing today?
Good morning. I'm doing great. My Sacramento Kings beat the first place Suns, so I'm very happy.
Yeah, and your Broncos almost beat the Chiefs yesterday, too. So close.
Let's just ignore that, okay? So
we didn't talk about that.
Promptly trying to move past that, okay?
I heard about that one.
I'm sorry.
I swear I probably pre-celebrated too early. I was like, it's over. We did it. We lost.
I was rooting for you because the Bills need the Chiefs to lose to get the number one seed. So I was rooting for the Broncos yesterday. But, so close. But anyway, we got Magic stuff to talk about. So today we got to talk about Marvel Secret Lair drops. We know what the drops are, but about the sale of the drops themselves, kind of an interesting experience. There's some Magic art changes and issues we wanted to get into. The possibility of players starting a new format without Universes Beyond came up this week. And then some big arena news with Wizards publishing the state of the client, the state of the formats on the client. So that's an overview for today. And then, of course, a Fishmail or two. But before we get into all that, a reminder that today's show is brought to you by Card Conduit, and Card Conduit's the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. If you ever get tired of the hassles of buy listing, you can skip them with Card Conduit. You can use their curated service where you send in as many cards as you want with a buy list value of $1 or more and pay just a 5% fee. And if you want to do a bit of work, you can use their sorted service where you list and sort your cards in advance and pay just a 2% fee. Either way, you're going to get a detailed report with the results and a fast payment once your order is processed. And you can even get another 10% off by heading over to cardconduit.com/MTGGoldfish. Card Conduit, they're the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. So thank you to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And let's talk some Magic, and let's start with something that was actually going on during our last podcast. So last Monday was the Marvel Secret Lair drop sale. As we were casting, we were trying to get the Secret Lair drops. How did that go for everyone? Krim, I don't think I've actually asked you this. Did you end up getting cards from the drops after okay, so the sale started, it was like an hour-long wait, blah, 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 the line paused, all that stuff. Did you get your cards in the end?
Yes, I, who was on the reveal panel, did have to get in line to buy one and barely secured one. I'm not gonna lie to you, I had to tap into my networks. I was just like, I asked my girlfriend, I was gonna ask my dogs, I asked everyone, hey, if you are in line right now, I will get it. And then luckily, because I think I was still like an hour or two in the queue left, but somehow my girlfriend was only like 7 minutes away. So she was able to get in without using any of the bypass codes, which why the hell does that exist, by the way? The bypass links. And then on top of that, yeah, we were able to get in, get the Arcane Signet, and I think the card should be showing up soon. So yeah.
I'm glad
pretty much sold out in minutes, right? So
seconds.
So
maybe?
If you don't know what happened, right? So if you came at the right time, which was 9 a.m. Pacific, you would be thrown into a queue that made you wait 1+ hours, okay, to get checked out. So people took a while to actually check out, but if you were not there at like literally 9 or like seconds after 9, by the time your queue finished, you did not get to purchase anything. So it literally sold out in seconds. And what Krim alluded to were a bunch of loopholes that existed that allowed people to bypass the queue. And I think this was part of the outrage. And there's not just one, guys. There were multiple alleged loopholes. So I'm gonna break down ways you could have cheated the system because Wizards didn't care enough to like make it foolproof. So apparently you could just set your computer's clock into the future.
Yeah.
Okay. So you just change the time on your computer, be like, hey guys, it's 9 o'clock when it's not, and then you get in. A second way is, so when you get into the cart, you get 20 minutes to check out. So if you just went 20 minutes before 9 o'clock and added an old Secret Lair to your cart, your session would start. You'd be in there, and then when the secret lair drops, you can just add those to your cart, check out instantly. Done. Yet another way to do it was apparently there's a secret link where even if you're in a queue, if you just go to the link, you can just check out. It just straight up bypasses their security altogether. So there were multiple ways that people could do it. Apparently, this has been known for a while, right? So apparently, if you are a frequent secret lair buyer, you would have figured these out already. So a lot of people got a jump on the general public, and especially if you're like a first time Magic player, you came here for Universes Beyond Secret Lair. Like, there's no way you would know this, right? And then even if someone posted it at 9 o'clock on Reddit, by the time you read it, like, you were kind of like out of luck. So what's up with that, guys?
Yeah, I mean, so this can't be correct, right? Like, there's no way that this is this. I don't buy other things like this on the internet, these FOMO sales. Like, I imagine this isn't normal, that there's all these workarounds to like cut the line or get in line in front of people, or like this can't be how all these sales go, right? Like, we should be being like, Wizards, what's up with this? Like, why is your system not working properly here? Because it seems very unfair, right? Like, I clicked, and I didn't really care much. I just wanted to grab one secret lair drop because I thought it was good value. I was going to grab the one with the Ozolith. So it wasn't like a big deal in the end that I didn't end up getting anything. But I like clicked right when the second switched to noon Eastern time, 9 Pacific, and it immediately put me into an hour-long line. I was like, that's kind of weird. Like, how in the world are you in an hour-long line, even if you're clicking the second that the sales goes up? But then it made a lot more sense when I heard there was all these workarounds and people getting in early by changing their clocks. Like, oh, there's already this line forming. But like, we need Wizards to fix this if they're going to keep doing these super hype secret lairs, right? Like, please. And the worst one is the company that runs the client that they use to sell secret lairs, called Qit. They actually say that you can hack their line. If you're a tech-savvy user, you can just skip through the queues, but it's easier and quicker to integrate than using a secure way of doing this. So it kind of makes it sound like Wizards just picked the easy, cheap version that allows tech-savvy users to skip the queue if they know what's up, rather than the more like harder to implement but secure server-side connectors. So Wizards got to fix it. They got to fix it. Like, we can't keep doing this.
There's no fix though, right? Because like, even if you remove the queue jumpers, you clicked and sat in line for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. You fix it by moving to a lottery system, right? Like, there's no way, right?
God,
Like, if
no.
1,000 people are fighting for one spot, like, yes, you can make sure that no one cuts the line, but the line is there and it's like all random, right? Like, who has the fastest ping to Wizards to click at exactly the right time? You know what I mean? Like, it's all doo-doo. So you got to do what we do in One Piece, right? Lottery, you sell to like people that have bought previous secret lairs. What does your lifetime account look like? Like, there's all these weird things that you start favoring people, right? You buy a premium subscription to Wizards to get priority access, right? But at the end of the day, it was 1,000 people fighting for one spot. Like, you can't fix that without changing the entire system, right?
Like,
Wait, you like the lottery system? Because I mean, having been there,
it's better than sitting around and refreshing and doing random garbage, right? Like, just let me put in my email in a 24-hour period, come back, and then maybe I get it, right? Isn't that much better than taking time off work, sitting there refreshing, and some random stuff happens anyway? Like, I don't know what the best way to actually solve this is, right?
Okay, the best way is they already had it. In that they already had it with just, if you buy it in this window, you'll get it before everyone else. And then anybody else just gets it like 6-7 months later, right? Whatever. But
print on demand.
If we're gonna go with some kind of ticketing system, look, I've done it, right? I've done the San Diego Comic-Con tickets. I've done music festival tickets. I've done all of it. I don't think I like the idea of them prioritizing people who have bought before, because this does not welcome a new, like, the one thing I'm excited about for Universes Beyond, and especially Marvel, is the new players that'll come into the game. The new players will not have bought any prior secret lairs. So, like, if assuming this is their entry point, once again, we were trying to welcome the new players in with whatever purchasing system we can get. And I'm not gonna lie, this is kind of a bummer. Because then these new players didn't even have a shot with the current system. So between the lottery system, the current system that they did it with, I don't really like either. I don't know why they shifted back to this when they had it right in the first place with the Secret Life or the Extra Life Secret Lair.
I mean, there's actually studies. I was researching this after the Secret Lair drop, but there's actually studies that show having limited supply actually increases the demand for your product. So I think that the
Sure.
reason to do this is just like it's financial, right? You get the FOMO sales, you get the scalper sales, you have like all these people in a frenzy trying to get your thing, and it sells for 5 times as much on the secondary market. And like, I think that's part of the upside for Wizards. Like, the downside is there's a lot of very angry players, but the upside is you get to say we sold out and like had this hugely successful launch of our first Marvel Secret Lair drop. Wrapping back around to Richard's point, though, I think there's two things here, right? So yes, you can't fix people waiting in line for 4 hours because there's this huge amount of demand and the system's not built for it, but it's still pretty. You can fix people line jumping though, right? Like, yes, it's not going to solve the problem of you got in the line 5 minutes too late and you sat there for 4 hours, but it's still a really bad feel bad to know that like people who are in the know were able to just like jump in front of everyone who was sitting there for hours, cash out with their stuff, get whatever they wanted to, get all the promos before they sold out. So that part I think can be fixed. Like, you could fix the changing your clock because it blew people's minds when it came up. Like, people were like, it's wild to me that a system would work like this. I'm in programming and it's crazy that in 2024 you design your system that someone could roll their clock back and it was based on your computer and not the server and all this stuff that's over my head. But I think you could fix that though, right? Like, couldn't that be fixed at least? The line jumping stuff?
The line jumping stuff is a huge problem and definitely is fixable. Kind of surprised, I guess, that they didn't, considering that, you would assume this is their most hyped drop to date.
Yeah.
I mean, you can fix it, but it doesn't matter, right? Like, if it didn't exist, we would still have this exact same podcast. The community would still be fuming about not getting the Secret Lair. So, like, yes, you can fix this, and yes, there's some value to it, but the main problem was this experience of I took my day off of work, tried to buy this thing, couldn't buy it, and then on top of that, you slap me in the face and say someone like skipped the line to do it too, right? Like, but like you still didn't end up with the Iron Man anyway, right? So you're still kind of mad.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, that's the artificial scarcity model, right? And like Bandai does it a lot. That exists everywhere, right? And you're right, Seth. Though it does work, right? And in a world of a collector card game, right? It does add to I was lucky enough to land one of these, right? Just like how, I was lucky enough to get San Diego Comic-Con tickets, like things like that. Like, it sucks, but it is a collector card game. So at the end of the day, I joke like about, I'm going to burn my computer if I didn't get a drop. Maybe I would have. But the thing here is I honestly would have, I think, accepted it. I would have been sad, but I would have accepted it, right? Because it's a collector card game, so I just assume I may not have gotten it.
Well, you would have, Krim would have just paid third, like aftermarket prices, right? Like, you can still get these cards. So there's a couple things. One thing I wanted to say before we move on to the current prices of these and like where they're going to end up is a lot of people thought like this is according to Wizards' plan, right? That like selling out in seconds is what they wanted. And like, no, right? Like, whoever did it, like, it's very bad for Wizards, right? They left like millions on the table, right? So they do want it to sell out, right? So they do want this model of like creating FOMO, but they don't want it to sell out in like literal seconds, right? They want to like sell everything out and, maybe cut the supply by like 10%, 20% or something like that, right? But you need to remember, these layers were printed like way back. Remember the leak, the Facebook Marketplace guy leak, right? That happened before we had a Marvel panel, right? That happened before you saw the reaction to Doctor Strange Counterspell, right? So Wizards probably just took like their best Secret Lair of all time and said, we'll double it, we'll triple it. I don't know, right? Like, that's probably enough. Right? And then they did that. And then everyone's like, oh my God, Marvel's going to be the greatest set of all time. So when I get in, I'm going to add 5 of each drop to my cart. And then I'm going to add 5 mega bundles to my cart. Then I'm going to add 5 non-foil and foils or whatever. And everyone ends up buying like 10, 20 times the normal cards that they would buy. Right? and like you immediately sell, right? Like if you were just planning on like 2x the initial Secret Lair drop, like just every person adding an extra like does you in, right? And there's no way with a straight face they could be like, yeah, we're gonna go 10x size, right? Like, you know, that's incredibly risky, right? So I don't know if we think they actually printed the right number, the secondary market will crash, right? Like all the scalpers like bought all of their, you know, extra layers to resell, but if that demand is not real, they'll start undercutting each other and you'll eventually get back to like basically MSRP, right? If the demand was not real. If the demand is real, you're out of luck, right? It's going to be that high, right? But I saw so many screenshots of people like just their cart full to the gills, like of multiple versions of literally everything. And I'm like, that's wrong, right? Like you're kind of causing the problem, right? Like you're taking like 20x the number of cards you should be taking, right?
Nah, but isn't that also Wizards' problem? Because can't they
Yes.
just set limits on it? Like,
They
if
just set
this
the
is an
limit to
issue,
one, right?
one per
Yeah.
customer, like they could still control this. The other thing I would say on the like Wizards end of things, their CEO did like a week before the sale, like go on an investor call and be like, this is gonna sell out immediately, which I think is
What's he
like
gonna say? Our product sucks. It's not gonna sell out. Don't worry, guys. It's
I would love a
every
CEO
team
that
you go, every
opens with
game you
that.
go to the TV like we're gonna win today, guys. Even though it's like 10-1 odds, like we got him, right? Like of course you're gonna say that. What's he gonna say?
But PR wise, when you combine the CEO saying that with a lot of like hyped previous Secret Lairs selling out in seconds and having crashing websites and big issues, I think it's a little harder for me or some people in the community to just take it at face value that, oh, Wizards ran this perfectly and they just got overwhelmed by this huge amount of demand that there's no way they could have foresaw coming. Like, I don't know. I still
would say
point the finger
screwed
back
it up,
at Wizards.
but not
Yeah.
maliciously, right? Like they screwed it up.
Oh,
They're all looking
well,
at it like,
that's-
oh man, we screwed this up. But it's not like we screwed it up and we're happy about it because that's exactly what we wanted, right? They're like, actually,
okay.
we under forecasted demand by a lot. And what this means is Universes Beyond is rocking, right? Like it
Marvel, at
blew
least.
past all of their expectations, right? Because I believe
Yep.
they set the right expectations for themselves and it just got overwhelmed. But I don't know. That's all speculation, right?
Yeah, in the grand
I mean,
What do you
scheme of
guys think the
things,
price will end up
This
at
is-
though? Because
Well, right
currently
now,
they're really expensive, right? But
Insanely
they're
expensive.
not in hands yet. They're not. People are not actually able to sell them yet, right? So
I mean,
what happens?
right now we're seeing the rainbow foil for the first time. The foil is, I feel like, the more expensive than non-foil, but not by much. You're seeing them like 207 for a foil Storm Secret Lair, and then 170 for a non-foil.
Yeah, I've seen Storm singles like around 120. Like if you just want to get Storm as your commander, you got to pay around 120 bucks is what I've seen. And I think that's the most expensive of the new commanders.
I think this is where eventually, right now, there will be a little bit of a spike, but I think it'll settle probably around. I think it's going to stay here. I don't know if it gets higher. I don't think it gets higher. Only because I haven't seen other Secret Lairs get much higher than this. Unless, let me see, like, did Monty Python go up?
No, but well, actually, I haven't looked at Monty Python. I would guess no, but I would say there is kind of some uniqueness here with these being mechanically neat cards, right? Like unlike a all
True.
reprint Secret Lair drop, where if you want to play the card, you can just get another version. If you want Storm, it's either proxy it up or spend 120 bucks, right? Like there's not another cheaper Storm out there. And I think for me, that's the big question that's unanswered right now is like Wizards will reprint these eventually. The list is gone, along with the promise to reprint these within like 6 months after they happen. We don't have any idea if these are going to be in a Marvel main set next year sometime. Are these going to be reprinted some other way in the near future? Is it going to be 5 years until they're reprinted? So I think that's like probably the funniest outcome is if these are all just like random rares in the Marvel main set and they're like $1 in the future and they really
Did
just
they
hose
say-
everyone who FOMO'd Secret Lair. They just absolutely hose them. That
Did they
is
say these are exclusive in any way or anything? Did they ever make that declaration?
No, when
know
they've
if they
talked
did.
about reprinting Secret Lairs in a broad sense recently, they've talked about they won't reprint the same art of cards. So you won't get this exact same Iron Man, but they haven't promised that these are like exclusive or won't be reprinted. If anything, they say they will eventually reprint all these exclusive Secret Lair drop cards. We just don't know when. So I think short term they're going to be very expensive. Like I think, to me, we saw that the demand for these Marvel cards was very real. Like that's kind of the heart of the problem here, is so many people wanted these cards that they crashed the system and they sold out instantly. So my expectation is, until we know there's more coming and a reprint of some kind, that you're gonna have to spend a lot of money if you want these cards. But I don't know, what do you think, Richard? Do you think prices are just gonna crash and this is all just scalpers and FOMO hype, and then eventually these cards are gonna be $5, $10 or something?
I think they're definitely gonna crash from whatever you see them at today, right? Like maybe if you're like 5 years from now, 10 years ago, they come up to this price, I'm like, okay, right? But in a couple months' time, like there's no way these stay at these prices, and I'm curious how close to MSRP it gets, because I do think a large portion of people just bought everything because, like, what the heck,
Free
right?
money.
And some people like quote unquote maliciously to resell. Some people just to buy for your friends, right? Like if I were buying, I would just buy one for Krim in case he didn't get it. Now he got it, cool. I can resell it on the market, right? Like whatever, right? Like just in case, whatever, right? I don't know. So I feel we would start going down, and I feel it's a little too early to declare like these are the real prices, because these are essentially pre-order prices, but they're pre-order prices of a fixed price product as well, right? So
Yeah.
I would just wait. I'm gonna
have
assume these scalpers will
concerns
start
about
undercutting
that.
each other. You think it's
Well,
gonna go up
okay.
from here? This is the bottom.
Well, the thing is, Seth has a point, right? These are mechanically unique cards, and with a cloudy future of reprints, we have no idea whether that's happening or not. But the Evil Dead Secret Lair, just Evil Dead, not a bundle, not anything like that. I'm looking for Secret Lairs that aren't the bundles. That's $185. That is a $40 Secret Lair. It is still, it went up, actually. So it is now, what, a year and a half removed from that? Princess Bride, $160. So
That's like
these
4x
were $40.
the cost. Yeah.
But how fast are they moving? How fast are they?
I
moving?
mean,
like they gotta actually sell significant volume, right?
I mean, I know I for sure at least bought one. I'm not gonna lie to you. I had to eat it, and I felt real bad, but I love Evil Dead too much. But yeah, so like looking at last sold, I mean, it's sold. Let me see here, the 5th. So
Okay. So
6
some
days
of them
ago.
sell.
Not me either.
No, it
Although I
wasn't you
was
this time.
I bought it in Halloween. Come on, everyone. I bought it at a reasonable price. I lied. That's $160 still.
What
but
do you
yeah,
guys
so
think
if
of mechanically unique? So in 60 card, mechanically unique is very important, right? So if like the tier 1 deck has a mechanically unique card, you need it to play in your premier events. Like you need to play meta. But in Commander, you don't have to build Storm, right? And you can proxy
also
Storm
proxy.
as well. You can proxy
Yeah.
Storm as well. And you could probably make like a banger Storm alternate, because there's so much banger art out there, right? But like you don't actually need this card, the official version, to play. So does that lessen this demand at all? Because I know like Nexus of Fate was a big deal, because you needed Nexus of Fate to play Standard, and to play in your premier events you actually had to have the real cards. But now you can roll up rocking a Storm proxy, or you just don't build Storm at all. So how does that factor in with mechanically unique cards?
So I
I mean,
think
yeah,
that
it feels
makes
bad,
Yeah.
right? It feels bad that we can't get it anywhere else. But in this situation, you did touch up on that right there. Nexus of Fate is a prime example of this, and how miserable it was to get that card, and how it was only one printing, and so all of them were curled because they were only in foil. And I can't tell you, it was so scummy. I saw so many people purposely get Nexus players deck checked.
Yeah.
So it was so scummy. But you are right, though. You don't need this Storm. Like you, unless you're a Marvel fanboy like I am or something like that, right? Like you don't necessarily need it to play in Commander. And I do not believe this is going to be legal in Standard. So, like why not just proxy it? If you really want to build it, just proxy it. Who cares? proxy it as in obviously fake cards, not to pass off as real cards to sell and scam others, by the way.
Yeah, so I think there's a difference, right, between 60 card formats and Commander, because like you said, you don't have the pressure to keep up with the meta to the same extent in Commander. You can play whatever you want. You can play at the power level that you want. You can find a table that's going to match your power level. So it's not like you have to have Nexus of Fate to be competitive in Standard. You have to have whatever. There's not a good modern example. Rick Steadfast Leader, if that really took off in Legacy, to be competitive in Legacy. So I think there is a difference. On the other hand, I don't know if your experience was different. I was surprised at how few proxies I saw at MagicCon Vegas. I was expecting more because in the last year there was like 30th anniversary edition and like a lot of stuff with people being like, I'm just going to proxy everything. I'm angry. I'm not going to play real cards anymore. I saw a few, but it wasn't like people were rolling around with, if anything, I saw people rolling around with $10,000 jank decks that they just really love Jurassic Park and they spent, $10,000, $20,000 to put together the coolest possible version of like what is very casual, a very casual deck. So I don't know if Commander players really think of it that way, at least a lot of them. If anything, Commander players are willing to spend a lot of money on their on their decks to get what they want. So maybe in the end it evens out because Commander players just have deep pockets in some cases.
I mean,
So MagicCon players are a different breed, right? Because you spent thousands of dollars to go to Vegas, hotel, flight, food. What is $100 card at this point, right? Like nothing, right? So most people at MagicCon Vegas had blinged out decks. I did see some proxies. I would say the number of proxies over the years has decreased. I feel if the further back in time we go at MagicCon, the more proxies I saw. And I don't know what that is really, because it still costs the same to go there. Maybe you're just like, oh, I'm just getting into Commander. I don't know how I feel about this. So let me, to try out things. But I never saw anyone, reject proxies. I never see anyone like have a discussion. No one's even like, oh, I have a proxy in my deck. We're just like, whatever, right? So
Yeah.
there was no stigma around it. But MagicCon is a weird beast because everyone there is like the whalest of whales, right? Like you spent thousands of dollars to go hang out with other whales. And like Phil even joked, like I saw some guy with like Draft Chaff Lightning Bolt. What's up with that? Right? It's just like some random Lightning Bolt in the deck that he picked up somewhere rather than like the most blinged out version. Cause like that's kind of what we're used to seeing when we sit down at a pod. But it does suck to have to print your own card, right? Like you're playing this game. Why am I proxying things? I want to collect some of the art and I want to play with it, right? So it does definitely suck. And especially if it's something like Commander where it's about self-expression and creativity and stuff like that. Like it feels kind of jank to roll up, with having to make cards, right? Like, so I don't know. It's like I think they do need to solve it, but I also think like if you were to make a stand, like this is where it's at, right? Like you're like, do not go and buy the secret lairs. Do not go pay aftermarket prices. Just don't play Storm. Like if you really felt Wizards is doing unfair things. Like you don't have to play Storm to play Commander and you don't have to play it to be competitive, but by purchasing it on the third party market, you are just validating these scalpers to keep doing it forever. And you're like kind of fulfilling the cycle. And I know it sounds easy to say don't participate, but like really you're kind of adding to the problem when you do that. So you got to make the scalpers hold the bag, right? Be like, we're out all this money. Don't do it again, right?
Yeah, but I don't know. Wizards doesn't get any message from that, right? Because they just sold out. They got, whether you buy a Storm on the secondary market or not, Wizards' income is exactly the same, right? It's locked in at this point. So I guess, yes, you can send a message to scalpers to maybe get them to not buy the next Secret Lair drop, but I would rather see print to demand or ways to cut off the line, like something to improve the system on WotC's end to make it more player friendly rather than scalpers, which I'm not sure how much of an issue do you think that is? Like, do you think a big percentage of this problem is scalpers and bots just buying it out? Or you think that's like the core of this problem? Or is that like a fringe problem that's connected to everything else?
Seth, as someone who you as a fellow concert goer, you know these things exist. Scalpers they're kind of the worst, right? Like,
Oh
they're
yeah, oh yeah. And
scalpers,
I mean,
bots.
for sure.
So I think they are always going to be a problem, and just like that, it's now the same with Secret
like-
Lair. So
But let's say we had no scalpers and bots. Does it still sell out in seconds? Where there's still people waiting for hours and cutting the line? Or are the scalpers and bots responsible for that happening?
I think the scalpers and bots definitely exaggerated the problem and made it much worse. But I think that without it, sure, a lot more people would have gotten in. I think it still would have been sold out, though. I think it still would have been sold out one way or the other, but at least more real people will actually get these into their hands. On top of that, I don't know. I mean, I really think at least if you're not going to fix it in some meaningful way, then just like at least isn't changing the model, then just put a limit. Just put a limit on it. Just put
one per unique card. One.
Yeah.
So like if you buy the bundle, like the mega bundle, you can't buy anything else. If you buy foils, you can't buy non-foils, right? And if you need some for your buddy, well, they got to get in line, right? Like because there's limited supply. So just literally one per playable would increase your capacity by like 20x or something like that, right? And it would be a lot better. Now, unfortunately, Magic has set itself up as a 4x format, right?
Yeah.
So if for whatever reason you need 4x lightning bolts, you're out of luck, right? But with the focus on Commander and these theoretically being Commander cards, I think doing 1x, and then if you want copies 2, 3, or 4, you got to do something else to get them. Or maybe 1x for the first day. And then if there's still stock, you can come back on day 2 and buy up to like the limit of 5 or something like that, right? But even then, it kind of sucks to have to buy everything in one day. But you can just time gate it so that 1x for a certain amount of period. And then when there are extras, feel free to come in and buy the extras, right?
Yeah, no, that would be helpful. I don't know if it's 1x or 2x or whatever the perfect number is, but some sort of smaller cap on it would definitely be really helpful. The other thing I would say to Wizards, and then we got to hit up a couple other topics today, but the one other thing I'd say, if you want to score some like just fast and easy PR points, do something with the like line skipping stuff. Like this other stuff is very big picture and like what's going to make you the most money. And we have FOMO versus, print to demand and what's going to be best. It's very easy to be like, hey, queue it. Like we'd like your upgraded service that doesn't allow people to skip the line or whatever. Like that sounds like something you can like fix tomorrow and make a, an announcement about. And people are going to be like, okay, good job, Watsy. So if you want some quick PR points, just at least you can do the line skipping thing.
And then they'll have to charge a $30 service fee like Ticketmaster. One would assume this is all Ticketmaster does, right? It's just some kind of weird queuing things, and then they gotta charge like $50 for the privilege of doing the checkout pipeline, right?
All right, we're gonna be right back with some more topics, but first, a quick word from today's sponsor. Today's show is brought to you by Shopify. We've been using Shopify for years to run our merch store, MTGGoldfishMerch.com. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business, from the launch your online shop stage to our first real-life store stage, all the way to the data million order stage. Shopify is there to help you grow. Whether you're selling Senate soaps or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell everywhere, from their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout and sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. What's great about Shopify is it works no matter how big you are. From selling your first tokens to handling your huge ebb and flow playmat campaign, everything was a breeze due to Shopify. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US, and Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way, because businesses that grow on Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial at shopify.com/goldfish. All lowercase letters. Go to shopify.com/goldfish now to grow your business no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/goldfish. All right, so next thing I wanted to bring up is there's been a big conversation about magic art and magic artists lately, which are also being affected by the change to more Universes Beyond sets. So the thing I want to ask you about is, what can we do about this? Because I feel like magic artists are a pretty important part of the game. Like, Magic has pretty iconic art. If you go to Magic cons, you see super long lines with people waiting to get a signature from their favorite artists. So here's the situation, as I understand it, based on what some Magic artists have posted recently. So Magic art for the last 30 years, they pay you $1,000 for a piece of art. It was recently raised a few months ago to $1,250 for a piece of art. Not a lot of money, right? If you're doing art for a living. So that's the going rate for a piece of Magic art. The way artists mostly make their money is selling playmats, selling anything with the card art on it, and also selling the original piece of art. So they own the piece of art, so they can sell that painting for $10,000, $20,000. In the case of a chase card, way more money. So actually, the artists get way more of their income by selling their art on the secondary market than they get from Wizards directly. So the change that we've seen with Universes Beyond is, thanks to Universes Beyond and all these licensing agreements that Wizards has with other companies, artists are no longer going to be able to sell the playmats, sell anything with the art on it, and they may or may not be able to sell their original art. Apparently, Marvel is allowing people to sell, like, your original oil painting. You can sell that. Other IP holders may or may not let you do that. So my question is, what do we do for Magic artists? Like, there has to be this. To me, on the outside, this looks like a 90% decrease in payers, like some massive pay cut. Essentially, does Wizards need to pay them more? Like, what can we do to keep good artists wanting to make Magic card art in this new system with Universes Beyond, where they can't just profit by selling playmats with the art on it?
Did you say that Marvel said it's okay? Like, they're okay with artists selling oil paintings of it, but is that what you said? Sorry, I just want to make sure.
Yes, people have been selling their original, like, you can buy the Storm art or the Iron Man art. Marvel said it was okay. They can't sell playmats or any of that stuff, but they can sell the original art pieces themselves. But that's not guaranteed for every Universes Beyond. But Marvel in specific signed off on them being able to do it this time.
Well, okay, so first off, awesome that Marvel will allow you to do that. Because that is a big backbone of, like, how artists make their money.
Yeah.
You love seeing that, and you love seeing artists actually want to come back to the game and continue to make more art for them. But if, let's say, another partnership doesn't allow it, I think that has to be disclosed at the very beginning of their contract. And if that's disclosed and the artist is made aware, then you should be paying a way more than $1,000 or some change up front. You should be paying like actually. I feel like the cost of what artists should be paid then is almost impossible. It would have to be at least $10,000, right? And that may not even be enough, because I'm not sure how much an artist actually makes in the artist alley when they sell the oil paintings and whatnot, but I have to assume it's a more respectable amount than $1,000.
Yeah, I will also say many artists that I've seen have also said that Wizards actually, the $1,250 now that they're getting up from $1,000 up until a few months ago, is actually not that bad of a rate to get from a company, apparently. So apparently art isn't that good, but a lot of them are actually like Wizards isn't like way out of whack with like the norms here, but they're missing all this extra upside. So what would you do, Richard? Like, do you have any ideas on this, or are we just going to lose a lot of artists with this new system?
It's a weird system because, like, it's weird that, like, let's say I make a Spider-Man card, right? And then I sell Spider-Man playmats or something in perpetuity. Like, Marvel probably wants a cut of that, right? Like, Marvel's agreement with us was probably like, okay, we get like X% of all revenue, period, right? So then you have to account for that. And like, how the hell am I going to account for like 18,000 artists all selling their playmats? So I think Wizards took the easy out of like, nah, you can't do it. And with like an oil painting or something, it's a one of. So you're like, okay, one of, we'll just let it slide, right? Like, I think that's like the rationale behind that. I think you just cut all those sales and then just pay the artist the appropriate amount. Yeah. The problem is, it's not equal. Like, even in the oil painting case, like, only some artists can sell their oil painting for $10,000, right? Think of whoever drew your bulk common card. Like, is someone going to spend like $10,000 for that art, right? Like, that art is worth a lot less, right? So I don't know that you can somehow apply a fixed rate or something, or like, why does the why does the artist need to have a second job of selling art after they sold it to Wizards already, right? So I'm more of the fan of like, they're not allowed to resell anything, and then you compensate them properly to account for that. And then you take the original art and you do something. Like, so Wizards just buys the original art from you, and then now Wizards does something with it to, recoup the costs. But I think it's just accounting, right? Because I think it's like royalties and IP issues and stuff like that. And then to keep track of like all the artists and then to keep it all under control, I think is probably too difficult. So they need to simplify it somehow. And it's different now, right? Because before it was only Wizards IP, so they could manage it all within house. But now they have a deal with someone else and it's someone else's IP. And then what do you do with this? So I don't know what the answer is. But it's good to hear that Wizards pays above market for artists, because from everything I've heard, they always pay below market for everything. So I'm like, oh, okay, at least they're doing something here.
Yeah, so here's, I guess, my other question. I think you're right on the reasons. Like, I think it is just, it gets so complicated. We have so many different rights holders, and like each one is different and has different criteria for where you can and can't do with their IP. So I think you nailed like the problem. I don't know what the solution is, though. Like, yes, the solution is Wizards being like, we'll make up for this by paying you a lot of money, but that seems like a tough sell to Wizards. It's because right now the system is almost like how they pay people for playing in Magic tournaments. Like, we'll give you a little bit of cash, but we'll give you a Ragavan that's worth $30,000 that you can sell in the secondary market. That's kind of what they're doing with artists, right? We'll give you a bit of money for making the art, but then guess what? You can sell that art piece for way more in the secondary market, and you can sell playmats with the art on it. So I don't know if it'll be palatable for Wizards to be like, hey, we're going to pay you 10x as much. We're going to pay you $10,000 instead of $1,000 for each piece of art. And I don't even know if that's like a number that would make all the artists whole on this or not compared to what they were getting before. But like something like that, I don't know if Wizards goes for it. And then I have a fear in the back of my mind that this is what leads to AI art taking over Magic. Because we've heard the Hasbro CEO talk a lot about how he loves AI, that he wants to use it in everything. I could imagine a world where a lot of Magic artists are like, it's just not worth it anymore for me. Like, before I could make so much more money selling all this stuff on the secondary market, it's not worth it for $12.50 a pop. And does that lead to Wizards being like, well, you know what? We'll just do it on our own with AI and we won't even have artists anymore. So you have any fear that this could lead to the end of original Magic art or the diminishment of it?
I'd like to believe that Wizards is at least slightly grounded and able to read the room and not do that, right? So instead, I'm wondering if there's a possibility, and I don't know if this is something maybe Wizards could then structure into any contract with a partnership, is that artists that work on our game, can sell their work in secondary markets. Yeah. Maybe that's something that Wizard can put into the clause with any company that wants to partner with them in a Universes Beyond. Is that possible? I don't know. Richard, do you know?
I mean, anything is, you can ask for anything. Whether people want to deal with it. So here's the problem, though. I don't think any of this will be done, right? Because it's all a lot of work. Either like a lot of like legal work or a lot of money, right? Like maybe it's very easy, just pay everyone more, but that's like a lot of money, right? The problem is they just choose the next person, right? Yeah. Like it's a super competitive field where a lot of people are in it for the passion, and that's very easy to take advantage of, right? So like for, like anything like video game industry, stuff like that, people are underpaid relative to people of similar skill set in other industries because they're willing to take a cut for the passion. And then even if you personally are not willing to take a cut and you're like, no, there's someone beside you that will take it, and then they'll just go hire that person. So I think that's the problem. So I don't know what will happen, but I think unfortunately Wizards has the upper hand here, right? Because Wizards will be like, okay, longtime Magic artist, thank you. Here, I can tap into this next generation of comic book artists, right? And if I remember correctly, before, comic book artists were not allowed to sell their own things as well. And like this whole discussion that we're having happened in the comic book world. And I don't know what exactly came of it, right? But like I can imagine that if you don't want to draw Spider-Man for $2,000, I can find the next guy over there that will do it for $1,000. Like I think that's like very easy to do. And I think that leads us to not getting to an optimal solution, right? Because there's just so many people willing to do the art because they're like, yeah, I can work with Magic for a discount, get my name in there, do my own thing, right? Like that's the thought. And then there's a lot of these people, right? So it'll kind of happen, right?
Yeah, go on Fiverr or something and just look. Yeah, I know it's not the same as Magic art, but there's so many people willing to do art for you for some amount of money. So it's not like there's going to be a shortage, but I do think we might see, sadly, like some pretty well-known longtime Magic artists maybe rotate out if this sticks, where we've already seen some of them actually talk about like not doing Magic art anymore because of the contracts around Universes Beyond. So I think we might see a rotation of like some of the old artists, sadly, just not being able to do it anymore. And then I guess if there's an upside to that, maybe there's some new voices in the art world that'll be awesome and we'll love. But it does seem like a bad thing for like longtime Magic artists. Like overall, this seems like a pretty big hit.
I mean, if they can't figure out how to make this better, at least maybe put it in the clause to where you can sell on the secondary market, it's going to be sad. You're going to see a huge exodus of just artists that have worked on the game forever.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really sad.
Well, let's move on to one other big topic for the week. We got some arena news. So they published their kind of yearly wrap-up, I guess, the state of formats on Magic Arena, and also the state of the game for Magic Arena. So a couple of articles. You can check them out over on the mothership. There's a couple of notes here, I think, that are worth bringing up. One bit of good news that I'm pretty excited about is with Foundations, the special guest cards, which if you open a special guest in a pack, they're always mythics, right? They got that mythic rarity symbol. They have always been various rarities, though, where the special guests, some are common, some are uncommon, some are rares, some are actually mythics. You've always had to spend mythic wildcards on them on Arena. Starting with Foundations, though, you'll be able to pay a wild card equal to its last non-special guest printing, if that makes sense. So if the last printing before the special guest printing was a common, you can spend a common wild card on that card, even though it's still going to have the mythic symbol on it for the special guest version. If the last printing before the special guest was a mythic, then you still get to spend a mythic. But basically, this seems like a strictly good change for players, right? Like you're not going to have to spend a mythic on a lightning bolt anymore, or a goblin bushwhacker anymore, because they're actually not mythic. So I think that's a positive change from Wizards.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess there's not a whole
Is
lot
there
to
anyone
say
that will
about
argue
is there?
against this?
All right, let's move on to the more interesting.
Well, I do have one question. It's just, have they fixed the temple issue? Because
No, I don't think.
Foundations
Unless temples are special
bring-
guests, then maybe we're good. But
Foundation brought back temples again.
yeah, and I'm gonna have 3-4 different versions of my Arena collection thanks to Foundations.
Yeah, look at the upside, guys. It's more to collect.
That is true. Oh God, Arena collectors. All right. So in more interesting news, Wizards published the State of Arena formats, which includes a very wizardy chart. I don't know how Wizards is so bad at making charts. There's like some percentages. You can't really see the time frame. It's very WotC of them. Richard, what does this chart show, and what can we glean from this chart, if anything?
So it's major arena formats over time, and the y-axis is percentage. So this is I guess the play percentage of all formats. There's no x-axis, so you have no idea what the time is. Okay, I get why they do this, because they don't want to give you like all of the data for you to do your competitor research on them or whatever, right? So, but you can probably glean that giant bump is probably Bloomborough or something, right? I don't know, right?
It does say it's from sometime in Bloomborough through the lunch of Duskmorn. So we do know that. We don't know exact weeks. The bump is Duskmorn, apparently. They also said
Duskmorn
that.
release then.
So that's Duskmorn releasing where you
There
see
you
the
go.
standard bump.
Now you can piece it all together.
Yeah,
now you know.
So it's got to be
But
like
the
between a
interesting
month or
thing
two,
is-
something like that.
There is information you can glean from this, even though you don't know exactly what you're looking at, which is the standard curve it's slowly trending down, then gets a big resurgence, right? And that's Duskmorn.
Intuitive.
That standard is played like 50%. Historic is 20%. Brawl, I want to say like 17 or something.
Almost
Alchemy is
historic.
8%. And then Explorer and Timeless are kind of neck and neck, with Explorer slightly ahead at maybe 6%. and Timeless at 5%. Yeah. So you can see the relative popularity of the formats. And in general, they're all pretty consistent over time. The difference was Standard had a bump, and then Historic had a little depression during that time.
Yeah,
But they're all in general always like this.
How this? I wonder how much closer these other formats would be if like they actually didn't punish you for playing older formats. Like it feels so expensive to play these older formats, dude. But
yeah.
but regardless, on top of that, you said that bump is Duskmorn.
The bump in standard, yeah, Duskmorn.
I am curious. So I was out over the weekend and I was looking for collectors stuff, right? Collectors boosters and just booster packs of Duskmorn. They were all sold out
Wow.
in my area. Is Duskmorn quietly a banger set because it got popular? It has a good limited format. And on top of that, it has been awesome in standard. It's had cards spread out across the board. I'm not surprised to see that there's a bump in standard because of that.
All right.
Yeah?
Let me put on my Detective Sherlock hat, Krim. Now this chart is halfway from Bloomburrow to past Duskmorn. The bump in Duskmorn puts you back to the start of the graph, which means the most popular Duskmorn has ever been is a fraction of Bloomburrow's popularity if we were to extrapolate this. So
I
would actually say this graph tells us Bloomburrow was vastly way more popular than Duskmorn is what we would have to extrapolate.
There's no doubt about that. There is no doubt about that. We know Bloomburrow, like there's no question Bloomburrow sold well. It sold well, but I'm going to be honest with you, Duskmorn plays better than Bloomburrow, I think.
Yeah, I like Duskmorn a lot. I like both of those sets, though. So for me, they were both just like really good sets. So I think they both have a lot going for them. But I think the difference is, I think everyone expected that from Bloomburrow. That was a set that Wizards had been telling us everyone had been hyped for since last winter when it was announced. Duskmorn, I didn't hear that same hype level for, where people are like, oh, Duskmorn, it's going to be one of the best sets of the year. It's going to be, I didn't really hear that, but it turned out to be, I would say, just as good as Bloomburrow. At least for me, I've enjoyed it just as much as Bloomburrow. So I think it might be definitely one of the surprise hits of the year.
I'm talking just play. Like if we had blank white squares and we removed the art and theme and all of that, just gameplay.
Yeah.
I think Duskmorn is just better.
Oh, gameplay. Yes. I think if you just go gameplay, I think Bloomburrow gets bonus points for like the cuteness and the little animals. Like I think that's a lot what people love of it. But gameplay wise, I'll take Duskmorn over Bloomburrow for sure.
I'm going to extrapolate more data out of this non-data guy. So alchemy is 10%, right? Or something like that, right? And
sure.
That's the default format. So if you are dropped into Arena brand new, you'd be playing Alchemy. What this tells me is there's like no new players playing the game. Like it's all old timers who have switched off of Alchemy. Because if it was just new people popping in and playing, you would expect Alchemy to be way higher because that's the default game mode. And you expect them to stay there too, right? But apparently no one's touching Alchemy. And when you first come in, you're dropping off immediately. So I would say it's concerning that everyone clicks away from the default and doesn't use the default, right? It kind of means we're all boomers here.
It'll be really interesting. I think you're right. It is kind of interesting. Makes you wonder how many new players there are. But I think it'll be very interesting to see next year when they publish this, because they mentioned in one of their articles that with Foundations, they're switching up and now they're pushing new players into Standard because of Foundations and not Alchemy. So I'm very curious to see if Alchemy just like actually dies. Like, I'm not sure. Old timers don't like it. If you're not pushing new players into it, I don't know who's playing Alchemy at this point once Foundations comes out. So it'll be interesting to see a year from now where Alchemy is on this chart. So the other thing I want,
Foundations pre-release.
Oh wait, did you guys pre-release? I forgot about that. I didn't go to pre-release this weekend, but if you went to it, we should actually bring it up super quick.
I got kicked under my Foundations pre-release, but not in the way
for being toxic.
Okay.
Yeah,
we gotta hear the story.
No,
Richard.
so
what did you do?
Okay. So I was there to play One Piece as normal, right? And it's like new set release. It's new set release, premium best. I watched someone pull a $6,000 pack. Yeah, that happens in One Piece. But the Magic players come in because Magic follows One Piece. And the room is packed to the brim. I've never seen it this full compared to Duskmorn or Bloomburrow. So full that they're like, One Piece players, get out, right? Your tournament is over. Stop trading. Stop playing casual games. Like, get out. There's like not enough seats in the place. And there's just so many people there. There like I didn't expect Foundations to be so popular, but it is. And then I was just scanning through a lot of people, bless their souls, new Magic players, right? They're like, what do these cards do? Right? And I'm like, oh, you poor soul. You're never gonna build a seal pool like this, right? But it was actually not that bad because it's Foundation. It's not like, Word
Yeah,
Vomit like Dustmorn, right?
a
But
little
still, like
simpler.
a lot of new players too. So anecdotally, like Standard is popping hard, right? Like like
Yeah,
these like Foundations is pretty hype. I'm like shocked by this, right? Like I thought
it's
Bloomborough was gonna be peak, right? But like there's just a ton of demand. So I think good things are happening in paper Magic, right? Like I think
Yeah.
it's coming back.
All
it's
from Bloomborough, I saw a spike. Like it was just packed to the brim pre-release. Duskborn packed to the brim, and then now Foundations just sold out. So
yeah.
all of these events have sold out now, and I haven't seen sold out pre-releases since what, like way back, like Dragon's Maze and that era, maybe like moving forward around there.
It's so funny because we just had like the big freak out, right? About Universes Beyond coming to Standard and quitting Magic and how many people are, I'm done with this forever. And at the same time, pre-releases are selling out. We're talking about Magic Con Vegas being the biggest like Magic Con that they've ever done. So all the signs seem to be, and the Marvel Secret Lair drop sale that we talked about earlier, like going incredibly well just as far as selling out. So it makes me think that like, I don't know. Does it make
Magic
you
is dying.
think
Yes.
that maybe part of this internet reaction is just overblown? Like, it has to be some of the. Are there all the
Way
people complaining on the
overblown.
internet? Are they quitting Magic, or are those same people going out to Foundations pre-release the next week and just like getting over it and moving on? I feel like some of them gotta be. So I feel like you get these emotional reactions on the internet, but they don't always carry over to real life. So I think maybe that's a lesson that's worth keeping in mind for future, because every bit of data we have suggests that Magic's doing really well right now and that Marvel did really well.
No,
I
no,
think a
Magic's
lot of
dying.
people are
So
getting ready for Marvel, right? They're like, next year I'm gonna play Marvel, so I guess I gotta learn
You
Magic the
gotta learn this
Gathering
game.
rules. Yeah, so I'm gonna go play Foundations. Like I actually honestly believe that. Like I literally bought a PlayStation 5 Pro this weekend, ripped my wallet, right? Just to play Final Fantasy Rebirth and Final Fantasy 16. Just so I can get ready for the Secret Lair drop. In which I know how to jump the line now, right? And I'm like, you got to pre-game for this thing, right? So I imagine if you love Marvel and you're like, oh, all my friends have been playing Magic for the longest time. Now I have a reason to play. I got to learn how to play the game, right? So I'm just gonna go to
Yeah.
Foundations pre-release. Like, why not? I'm already here, right? So I do believe that is part of the reason, and I believe you are seeing the effects of Universes Beyond already before the cards are even out in the wild, right?
I
there's
mean, we've
also
been.
something key to remember and to note about all of this. When I'm going out to these things, I'm seeing the one thing we've been actually severely lacking, and it's a younger demographic. It is a younger
good.
demographic now. And it's like, okay, so there are more. It's not just a bunch of like 30-plus-year-olds just like sweating it up, right? There's kids learning the game, and it's a nice mix and match. It looks like it's a mix and match of like just we're seeing a lot of kids playing. We're seeing the older demographic. We're seeing like more like it's so cool seeing girls coming in and playing now. Like the game is just hitting a wider demographic. And I mean, but of course, whatever. Magic's dying.
To wrap back around to what you said, Richard, I think we also saw that at Vegas, right? Just the impact of like Universes Beyond, even pre-Marvel, the Lord of the Rings and Warhammer, and how many people were like, I started playing in the last couple of years or whatever. Like we saw that for the first time at Vegas too. So I think you're right. We're seeing, and that's the exciting part, is these are people who they're not just like picking up a pack at their Walmart or Target or a pre-con and playing at their kitchen table. These are players that are getting invested enough to like go out to a pre-release at LGS, go out to a Magic Con for a weekend, which is a pretty good, I think, omen for the future of the game. Like if we can keep bringing these players in, it's maybe after all this angst and all the hard feelings about so much changing in Magic over the last few years, maybe we end up in a better spot when it's all said and done. Anyway, let's get into Fishmail. We're getting to the end of the cast for today. Richard, why don't you Fishmail us?
All right. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air. You guys are slacking, so we're going to go past back in time to solid gold toilet. With Universes Beyond and Horizon sets being printed so often, do you think pre-modern might be the last real Magic format? What is pre-modern? What is the exact card pool there?
So I believe pre-modern is, as its name suggests, up until modern. So stuff printed before Mirrodin 8th edition. I imagine there's a ban list for Power 9 and stuff, but yeah, it's like up till 2002 or something like that. So
I'm excluded from this.
I think something you need to focus on is the wording there. Also, real Magic.
I mean,
I got bad news for you, bud. All of Magic is real Magic.
We skipped this, but Maro, there was a Maro
and not
post
Alchemy.
this week
Oh yeah, not
that said, if you want a non-Universes Beyond Magic format, invent it, and we'll follow suit. Right? He straight up said that. So
he's not wrong. Like it is true if there's some thriving format where people are like playing non-Universes Beyond. We've seen it with Commander. We've seen it with Overextended, which became modern. Like Wizards will get in on it. Like there's no doubt about it. I don't think the demand is actually. I don't know. I'm skeptical of the internet reaction after everything we're just talking about. I'm not sure the demand is actually that high for a format that never changes. I think that's my concern that I have with like pre-modern, old school. I've seen people talk about 2015 modern. Any of these formats that just lock the card pool in place forever. I feel like it would be fun in small doses, but it's hard for me to imagine them ever being Commander or modern or some like massive format. I think they'd be really fun niche formats
or standard.
Yeah, or standard, any of those big formats. But I think it's hard for them to ever get to that point, right? Like, won't it get boring after a while? I feel like even I, who like old Magic, I would get bored if I could. Oh my God, my camera just fell over. I would get perfect timing.
Fell over.
Hey, I'm back. But yes, I think it would get boring after a while. So I don't know if it's. Oh my God, it's happening again. What a disastrous ending to this podcast. Morgan, make me look
keep it in.
Not so bad.
Editor,
here.
keep it in. Editor, keep it in.
Okay, there we go.
I don't understand. Is your camera just propped up on some Magic cards? Like how is it following?
I think
maybe if they are on Magic cards, they must be foils because the curls are propping it up at an angle.
So anyway, me falling aside. So I don't know. I think it's cool that those formats exist for people who enjoy them. And yeah, it probably is one of the last bastions of non-Universes Beyond Magic, which is cool, but I don't think they're ever going to explode and become huge formats.
Cube is what you really want if you are this, right? Because it's a curated
Universes Beyond is in there.
No.
But you can control it. You can do whatever you want.
You make your own cube, and it's a curated environment. You can change the card pool whenever you feel like it, and every session is unique because it's draft, right? So cube is where you want to be if you really hate that. But I mean, I would like if you start hating everything and start finding weird ways to play the game so you enjoy it, I feel it's time to move on. You know, it's like, you know, when I quit MMOs, it's when I'm like, today I'm going to play 10 hours of Final Fantasy 14. What should I do? And I start inventing random garbage to fill my time. And I'm like, it's time to quit, Richard. Like this, you know, if you don't have a purpose when you log into the game and you need to invent things, you know, oh, we're going to go with our Link shell and sing and dance. Like, you know, maybe it's time to quit, right? Like, so like, you know, if you have to like bend over backwards to make your hobby enjoyable, like, you know, it's okay to move on, right? So I don't know, right? So it's going to cause a lot of heartache if you're like, this is real Magic and this is not real Magic, because we are going into Universes Beyond.
Yeah. Anyway, Richard, how do people send us in Fishmail for the future?
All right, hit us up on Twitter at MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we get to your questions on air.
So anyway, I believe that brings us to the end of episode 510 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So Richard Krim, thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to our sponsors for supporting the show. And we'll be back next week to talk about whatever goes on in the world of Magic. So until then, have a great week, everyone. And this is the crew signing out.